I was standing in the egg aisle when I realized I couldn't remember the last time actually read what was on the box I was holding. Barn eggs, 2 pounds and 50 pence, picture of hens in a sunny barn. I'd bought this exact brand for 3 years. My daughter had asked me probably 50 times if our eggs came from happy chickens. I'd always said yes, not because I knew. Because the box made me feel like I knew. That was 5 weeks ago. What I found out since has made it impossible to shop the way I used to. It started the night she came home from school upset. 7 years old, crying because her teacher had shown them something about factory farming. She looked at me and asked if our eggs were like that. I looked at the box on the counter. The barn looked nice. The hens looked fine. I told her no. She went to bed relieved. I stayed up feeling sick because I'd just answered something I'd never actually checked. The next morning I did what I should have done years ago. I started reading, not the front of the box. The actual regulations, the line code, DEFRA welfare standards, legal definitions of every term I'd been seeing for years. What I found wasn't what I expected. The words I thought I understood meant something completely different. The UK egg industry uses for main classifications organic, free-range, barn, and cage. Most of us recognize these terms. We make choices based on them. But the legal definitions and what we imagine when we see those words are not the same thing. Sometimes they're not even close. The egg marketing regulations define exactly what each term must mean. These aren't vague guidelines, they're specific measurable standards. The problem is those standards are much lower than what the packaging makes you picture. By day 3, I'd requested farm visits. 2 farms agreed, 3 never responded. One farmer called me back and I could hear the frustration in his voice. He asked what I was trying to prove. I told him I just wanted to understand what I'd been buying. There was a long pause. Then he said something I keep thinking about. Most customers don't ask. That's why it works. Week 2 I started comparing every major supermarket's egg range. I photographed boxes. I made notes on wording, imagery, color choices. Patterns emerged. Certain phrases repeated. Certain images showed up across different brands. It wasn't random, it was deliberate. I contacted welfare officers. One told me consumer assumptions are built into the marketing strategy, not illegally, just effectively. By week 3, I de-identified for specific types of eggs that are sold legally everywhere, but represent something very different from what most people believe they were buying. The first type broke something for me, barn eggs, the ones I'd been buying. Every major supermarket sells them, middle price point. The packaging consistently shows spacious barns with natural light and clean straw. I'd always assumed barn meant the hens had some outdoor access or at least significant space. I asked 18 people. 16 assumed the same. We were all wrong. Barn eggs come from hens kept in sheds with zero outdoor access. Not limited access, zero, never in their lives. The maximum legal density is 9 hens per square meter. I measured a square meter in my kitchen. It's smaller than a coffee table. 9 adult hens sharing that space permanently. They have perches and nest boxes, which is better than old battery cages, but they never see daylight. Never touch grass, never experience anything outside that shed. When I fully understood this, something shifted. I'd been choosing barn eggs thinking I was being reasonable. Paying a bit more to do better. The packaging had made me feel good about that choice. But the reality was something I never would have chosen if I'd known what it actually meant. What made it worse was realizing the packaging wasn't lying. Technically, the barn exists, the hens exist, but the image and the reality were so far apart that it felt like the gap was the point. Like the system relied on me not asking. The second type made me question everything else I'd been trusting. Free-range eggs, legally. Free range means continuous daytime outdoor access. Maximum 9 hens per square meter indoors, 1 hen per 4 square meters outside. That sounds reasonable. What I didn't know is there is no requirement for the outdoor space to be anything more than just outdoors. I visited a fully compliant free-range farm. Every rule followed. The outdoor area was bare dirt. No grass, no trees, no shelter, technically outdoor access. But the space was so uninviting most hens didn't use it. The farmer showed me records. On good days, maybe a third went outside. He wasn't breaking any rules. This was legal free range. This was what I'd been paying extra for. Then he explained something that changed how I saw the entire system. During bird flu restrictions, which happen more frequently now, free-range hens can be kept completely indoors for up to 16 weeks before labeling must change. 16 weeks is for months. During the 2021 and 2022 outbreaks, most free-range eggs in UK supermarkets came from hens that hadn't been outside in months. The labeling stayed legal. Nothing on the packaging indicated this. I'd been paying 60% more during exactly this period. I started wondering what else I didn't know. What other assumptions I was making that were just as wrong. The third type is rarely discussed anymore but still exists: enriched cage eggs. Major retailers committed to phasing these out, but they remain legal. Budget ranges still carry them. They're still in processed foods. Enriched cages replaced battery cages in 2012, marketed as a welfare improvement. Technically, that's true. Each hen gets 750 square centimeters instead of 550. They have a nest box, perch, and scratching mat. I marked out 750 square centimeters on my kitchen floor. It's smaller than an iPad. That's the complete living space for one hen for her entire life. She can barely extend her wings. The nest box is shared between 60 hens. The scratching area is the size of your hand. These eggs are cheap. They're legal. And most people buying them have no idea what the measurements actually mean in physical terms. But here's what I didn't expect. The word enriched doesn't mean enriched compared to what's good. It means enriched compared to battery cages that were so bad they're now illegal. It's a comparison to something terrible, but the word makes it sound positive, abundant, better. The language does the work of making you feel okay about something you'd reject if you saw it. The fourth type made me realize how sophisticated this has become. When I started calling fake local eggs, regional branding, specific farm names, products called things like Farmhouse Fresh or Meadow Farm, rustic packaging, hand-drawn hens, sometimes a printed farmer signature. The psychology works perfectly. You automatically assume small-scale, local, individual care. You pay more for that feeling. I traced 5 brands sold as local in my area. 3 came from the same industrial facility in Lincolnshire. Over 70,000 hens. The eggs travel more than 100 miles. The farm name exists legally. It's registered. But it's a brand, not a place. It's marketing designed to look like geography. Your trust being used while you feel good about supporting something that doesn't exist the way you imagine it. When I contacted these brands, one replied saying their farm name represented their commitment to traditional farming values, not an actual farm, not a location, a commitment to values. I read that sentence multiple times trying to understand how that was legal. It is. Because the law doesn't require farm to mean what we think it means. Week 4, I visited a different kind of operation, a standard free-range farm, but run by someone who genuinely cared about more than minimum compliance. The outdoor space had trees, real grass, varied terrain. The hens were noticeably more active, more engaged. The difference was visible immediately. The farmer told me something that clarified everything. You can meet every legal requirement and create something pretty miserable. Or you can go beyond compliance because it matters to you. Both are legal, both are profitable. Most choose minimum compliance because better packaging is cheaper than better conditions. That's when I understood what I was actually looking at. The regulations don't set aspirational standards. They set minimums designed to be achievable at industrial scale. And most production operates at exactly that minimum because there is no commercial reason to exceed it when packaging creates the emotional story more effectively than improving actual conditions. What this means for regular families is we're making decisions based on how packaging makes us feel, not on information about what's real. We pay extra for terms that legally mean much less than they emotionally suggest. We trust a system we've never verified. I told my daughter our eggs came from Happy Chickens based entirely on how a box made me feel. I'd let packaging make decisions for me. The practical reality is this. If welfare genuinely matters to you, basic labels aren't enough. Look for certification marks. Are SPCA assured, Soil Association organic, pasture-fed certification? These require standards above legal minimums. They cost more because producing them costs more. Check the code stamped on the eggs themselves. Every UK egg has one. The first number tells you what matters. 0 is organic, 1 is free range, 2 is barn, 3 is cage. That number is legally required. Everything else on the packaging is designed to make you feel certain things. Ask yourself what actually matters to you. If it's nutrition, the evidence shows minimal difference between types. If it's environmental impact, it's complicated and depends which factors you prioritize. But if it's welfare, if you're buying based on how these animals live, then understanding what these terms legally mean changes everything. Barn is not outdoor. Free range doesn't guarantee quality outdoor space. Local doesn't mean small scale or nearby. That packaging showing sunsets and happy hens was designed by someone whose job is making you feel specific things. This matters particularly now because food marketing has become sophisticated enough to completely separate emotional response from actual reality. We're making quick decisions in busy stores. We rely on visual cues. We trust that if something is legal and widely sold, it must align with basic values. But legal just means minimum allowable, and acceptable is entirely subjective. The gap between those two things is where the system makes money from your values without necessarily meeting them. The egg industry specifically benefits from our cultural nostalgia about farming. We're only a few generations removed from agricultural life. We maintain emotional connections to a version of farming that never existed at the scale we imagine. Modern egg production is industrial and completely disconnected from the pastoral images selling it. This isn't necessarily wrong. We need efficient food systems to feed people affordably. But the gap between the marketing and the reality has become so wide that we essentially buying emotional comfort. The eggs are just how that comfort gets delivered. I'm back in the egg aisle now. Same boxes I used to buy without thinking. Barn eggs showing barns that don't represent the reality. Free range showing fields that might be bare ground. Local brands from industrial facilities far away. Everything looks the same as it did 5 weeks ago, but I can't see it the same way. I see minimum compliance marketed as something better. I see my own willingness to trust images instead of checking facts. I explain what it means. I tell her that some things are harder to measure than others, but that space and access to outdoors aren't. She's 7 and she understood this faster than I did. Maybe because she asked the simple question I'd stopped asking. She wanted to know if they were happy. I'd been satisfied with a picture that made me feel like they were. We've normalized confusion in grocery shopping. We've accepted that making informed choices requires expertise most of us don't have. But the information has always been available. What we believe and what actually exists. The system isn't broken, it works exactly as designed. The question is whether that design serves your values or just makes shopping feel comfortable. If you want more investigations into everyday products most of us have stopped questioning, subscribe. There's more we've collectively decided not to see clearly.